Hey there guys, Coach Brandon here, and today I want to go over arm drag attacks with you. We've spent the last couple weeks looking at hook sweeps when you have an opponent who's down on their two knees, but hook sweeps aren't the only option. There's a lot of great submission opportunities as well. In the future, we're going to look at how I can go into arm bars and triangles and guillotines and front headlocks and all those out of this position as well. But those are going to come later on in our curriculum when we start taking a good hard look at submissions. Okay, I might briefly touch on it today, but that's not going to be today's focus. Today's focus is going to be on arm drags, taking my opponent's arm across my center line so that I can expose their back, get behind them, and get to the best position in jiu-jitsu, the back control position. Okay, so let's get started. First, Zach, if you'll be over here, please. So the whole notion behind an arm drag is dragging my opponent's arm across my center line so I can take his back. Do you guys remember where we did that before as well? In a closed guard, we looked at a position called the side scissor, which had us working from closed guard, and I was able to take my opponent's arm, dragging it all the way across my body, and now with his arm across the body, I was able to heist up and get behind him. So the arm drag is kind of a similar technique to that, where I'm dragging the arm across the body. Okay, it'll look something like this, where I drag the arm across, and then here, and I'll heist up to a knee, and I'm behind him. So that's our general arm drag. Now, in the hook sweeps, we saw how we could use the arm drag grip to actually go into hook sweeping activity as well. And so this is going to pair well with your hook sweeps. If you remember, we did look at a elbow 2-on-1, and we saw I could go in and elevate and go into hook sweeps here. And we saw that I can also switch my drag, or switch my grip, to an arm drag grip. So rather than being a cross wrist, and like so, we go with a straight wrist, and like so. So I can be wrist deep in the armpit either from the outside with the elbow 2-on-1 grip, or I can go wrist deep in the armpit from the inside with an arm drag grip. Now I could use this arm drag grip to scoop myself in, pull Zach up, and now we can go into our hook sweeping activity that we saw before. After you hit a few hook sweeps on your partners, they're going to sense and know what you're trying to do. So sometimes if I've used this grip to go into hook sweeping activity, something Zach might want to do is sink his weight back and away. Kind of kick your right leg back and sink your hips. Yes. Now that his hips are sitting down, he's sitting back on his heels, and I try to go to elevate him. Feels like he weighs 1,000 pounds, and it's going to be really hard to get underneath him. But because he's pulling back and away, it'll be a little bit easier for me to chase him and go to take the back. Okay, and here's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to take a straight wrist grip on Zach. It could be on the wrist, it could even be on the knuckle line of the hand. It doesn't really matter, anywhere here near the end of the lever. And we take the hand into the center. My right arm goes wrist deep behind here, and we could look to either drag the arm across and take the back, or we could try to elevate him for the hook sweep. Now from here, when I go to try to elevate Zach, he sinks his weight back and away, and it's going to be hard to elevate. But another option we have is the arm drag. So I'm going to take his arm past my body, and as I fall, I'm going to turn and look the same direction Zach is looking, and I'm going to drop to my right elbow. Here. Okay. What this does when I'm on my right elbow is it gives me a base of support on my right shoulder. I've shown this other ways in the past as well, but this is the way that I'm studying most recently. Because I'm on my right elbow, and because I turn and look the same way Zach is looking, that puts my left shoulder right here behind Zach's right shoulder. And because my shoulder is right behind his shoulder, I can very easily reach and grab the far hip. And why is that so important? Why is it important for me to control the far hip at the same time I'm controlling the arm like so? Do you remember what we call this? Zach remembered? Do you? It's diagonal control. remember that anytime I'm looking to attack the back, I want to control opposite corners of the body so Zach can't turn in either direction and he can't bring his head away from me or his hips away from me. Okay? Real quick, give me your back, Zach. Face the camera. From this position, if I were to control the same side of Zach's body like so, but I have zero control on this side, Zach cannot turn to his right. Okay, if he tried to turn and rotate to his right, he's going to be held in place very well. But there's nothing stopping Zach from going the other way. Go, go, go. Turn and face me. And it's lost, okay? But if I have opposite, if I have this hip and this shoulder, if he tries to go turn to his right, the shoulder, this control stops him. If he tries to turn to his left, my hook stops him. Okay, well what if I have two sides like so? Well now Zach can lean his head and shoulders far forward and I have no control of the upper body. Go ahead. And I'm going to be struggling to control the upper body. Conversely, if I have control of both shoulders, Zach can move his hips away from me, sink your hips down and away. And now I'm starting to lose control. There's no way I'm going to be able to ever get a choke at this angle. So we always want to, as much as possible, to establish that diagonal control. Opposite hip and shoulder. Opposite sides, opposite corners, or this diagonal. Let's go back to the arm drag. So from this position, I take the hand in toward the center line. I come in wrist deep, taking my left foot out so I can start to work my way around the body. If my foot stays on the inside, I can't work my way around because he has the outside position with his leg. So my leg goes to the outside, I go wrist deep, and now when I pull on this arm drag, I'm going to turn and look where I want to drag Zach into. Just like we did with our hook sweeps. Look where you want to take your opponent. Look where you want to throw your opponent or where you want your opponent to land. So I come in wrist deep. I'm going to turn and look where Zach is facing, and I'm going to drop my right elbow to the mat, just like so. Now with my right elbow on the mat and my shoulder in here behind Zach's shoulder, now my left shoulder is close enough to the far hip that I can reach up and grab this diagonal control. Now another benefit of me being on my elbow, let's rotate Zach. Just move it. With me on my elbow, I have a base of support. So I'm going to base my right elbow and my left foot so I can easily heist up from my right hip to my right knee. And I do that on my elbow. I can't prop my hand. Normally we prop on our hand to do a hip heist. But in this technique, my hand is committed to the shoulder and the armpit grip. So I have to drop to an elbow post. Now from the elbow, I can easily lift my hips up and get my hips off the ground by placing my knee down. So let's go from this angle this time. So now with my back to the camera, I take his hand in across my center line and take that wrist deep grip like I showed before. Now from here, my left leg comes to the outside. I'm going to turn and look where I want to take Zach, and I drop to my right elbow. Here. You see that me and Zach are now looking in the same direction. My shoulder is in here behind Zach's shoulder. Rotate just slightly. Is in here behind Zach's shoulder. And with my shoulder so close to his shoulder, my left arm and hand is so close to that far hip, it's very easy to get that diagonal control. So now I have the far hip and the near shoulder under my control. Now from here, I'm going to heist up. I base in my right elbow and my left foot, and I lift my hip off the floor. I'm going to replace my right hip with my right knee. And now I'm up and behind Zach. Now from here, you should recognize this from our bottom half guard series when we were looking to take the back. From here, my hook here is inside, so I have a good control of the near hip. And again, we want that diagonal control. If my hook is controlling the near hip, I want to make sure I go in and secure the far shoulder. And I do so with a wrist grip. I take this wrist grip and I pull it back so I have a good control of the shoulder here. And now from here, it's going to be a matter of breaking Zach down. We can use a good power half to break him down. Just as a quick recall too, if I go here and Zach doesn't move, we break him down with a power half. Do you remember some of the other options from here? What if Zach goes to start turning and put this hip toward the floor? Then we have the Garcia roll as long as I get my leg over his hip. When Zach goes to commit this hip to the floor, I want to get my leg to the floor before his hip does. And now I can, with this grip, I can roll all the way through. We have a Garcia roll. Also, we have our slicer roll if I don't get the diagonal control. Remember? If I'm in here, I come in. What if he tucks his elbow in, I don't get my diagonal control, and he starts to roll? Now from here, I go ahead, Jack. I turn toward the hips, and we go into our slicer roll to take the back. This should all be somewhat familiar or reviews to you for those of you who are here for the bottom half guard stuff. If you weren't here for that, don't worry too much about it, but establish diagonal control. Control one hip and the opposite shoulder. So one more time on this one. Again, cross wrist grip. My foot comes to the outside so I can get ready to take the back, and I go wrist deep in the armpit. Now the whole thing is to turn and look the same way Zach is looking, getting my shoulder behind his shoulder. A common mistake here, people will pull, and now I can't reach the hip. So when Zach goes to turn to his right hand side, I have no control of that hip, and I'm not going to get behind him. You may get a sweep, you won't get the back. So, rather than stay here facing this way, where my shoulder is so far away from the hip I'll never reach it, I'm going to commit to my right elbow, putting my left shoulder right here behind his shoulder. Now I get that hip so easy. Now when Zach goes to turn and face me, I have control of that far hip, and I can slow him down and take the back. Okay, so that was one scenario where I go to drag Zach, and he sinks his weight back and away to avoid the elevation, and it gives me the arm drag. Another thing I can do to get Zach in that vulnerable position is I can take his base of support out. Ideally, I want to create a situation where his shoulders are in front of his hips, and he's in this kind of turtle position. If Zach is up here well postured, the arm drag is a little different. We'll look at how to do that in a bit, but it's a little different. Ideally, I want to create a situation where he's like so. So I can either do that because I go to get a grip and he moves his own hips back, like we did before, to avoid the elevation, and now I have him in that position. Or I can push his knee out and create the same scenario. So from here, I'm going to take that same grip, straight wrist grip. I go here just like we did before. You could post on the floor, you could post on the hip, you could keep your foot on the inside. Doesn't really matter, okay? What's going to be the difference is this foot on the knee. As I go to pull his shoulder forward, I'm going to take his base of support away by placing my foot on his knee and pressing it away. And that forces him to drop to this position. Now, just like we did before, I'm going to commit my right elbow to the floor and look the same way as Zach as I take my left shoulder in behind his shoulder here. Get that far hip, we heist up, and now we're behind and ready to go to work. So once again, we combine the arm drag with a little bit of an off balance and knee push action to break his base of support, get him out of balance into a poor athletic position, and then capitalize on his poor position. Okay? Let me show this from another angle. So from here, I take the wrist across, you can post a foot in the hip, keep it inside, it really doesn't matter. We go here, my foot goes to the knee, and I'm going to push his knee out as I pull on the arm drag. And he goes down. Once again, I base in my right elbow, and I turn and I look the same way as Zach. That allows me to reach and control that far hip. Now from here, I'm going to hip heist up from my right hip to my right knee. And now, we're ready to go to work. Okay? So we've seen a situation where he pulls his own hips away. We've seen a situation where I physically push his base of support out from underneath him. Now we're going to look at a scenario where I'm not able to force Zach into that shoulders in front of the hips scenario. And Zach postures very well. He postures nice and hard, and I'm not able to bring the shoulders down in front of the hips. So now, because I can't bring him down to me, I have to go up to him. Okay? So from here, I take the arm across, and as I go to pull Zach, yes, he's pulling back and away strongly. I go to pull him in, and he's pulling back just as hard. He knows what I want, and he's going to fight up and away. Right here, my foot's in my own way, so I'm going to take my right foot out. I'm going to place my knee between Zach's knee just like so. So my foot comes out and my knee goes down. That allows me to rock forward over my foot and come up to my knee just like so. Now once again, we're going to look for that diagonal control. I already have the near shoulder. I'm going to step around, control the far hip, and now I'm up here ready to start attacking the back. Okay? So this time I go to do the arm drag, and Zach's going to be a good, strong partner. He's going to posture up. I'm going to go here. I'm going to try to drag him down, and I feel like I'm trying to pull against, a bulldozer. So from here, my foot here is going to stop me from getting up. If I try to sit up here, my foot kind of gets in my own way. It's wedged against the mat, and I have to get my center of gravity up over that foot, and it's hard to do. So rather than trying to get up over my foot, I take my foot out and I put my knee down between my knee and his knee. Now, as I pull myself up, I come up so easy. I reach around the corner, I look for control of the far hip, and now we're up here ready to go to work from the back. One more time from another angle. I go in to take the back, Zach postures, and I realize I'm not going to be able to break him down. So from here, I take my right foot out, and I place my right knee between his knees. Now I can pull myself up and rock over my right foot up to a knee. I step around, control the far hip, and now we're ready to go to work. So we looked at some common reactions so far where my opponent stays down on both of his knees. We saw him sink and pull his hips away, and then we saw him posture and pull his shoulders away. Okay, so those are two very common reactions. He's going to try to sink his hips down and away and pull the hips away, or he's going to try to posture up so he can pull his shoulders away. He's pulling either the bottom of his torso away, or he's going to pull the top of his torso away. Okay? Now, let's look at a couple other, or really just one other defense with a couple solutions and a couple variations, where my opponent goes from his two knees and he starts stepping up to a knee drop position or a combat base. Okay, that's also a super common scenario. Why is that so common? Because it will stop me from going to his back. Okay, so I'm here. I go to start dragging, and if he leaves this knee down, there's nothing in my way. Okay, there's nothing in my way. I can easily start working around the corner, and I get to the back. So when I start dragging, Zach knows I want to exploit this angle here, and he's going to post his leg up. Now the leg's in my way. It's actually dangerous for me to try to complete the arm drag in this scenario, because if I try to pull myself up, all Zach needs to do is slide this knee over my hip, step over my other knee here, and go into like a 3/4 mount, or yeah. Let's go back. So I go down. So he's going to drive this over my knee. He's going to step this leg over this knee. And he ends up in like a 3/4 mount scenario, and that's no good. Otherwise, he could do what he did before, where this time, maybe rather than stepping up to the inside, he steps up and over, and now he's going to try to take his hips up and over. Yes, exactly. Now he's going to back step with his left leg, and now I pulled him right past my guard. So a number of bad things can happen when he starts stepping up with that leg. However, feet in the inside position. And if he steps up, then we'll have a knee off the floor. You guys will know where to go from there, right? You're going to the Ashigarami. That's one option. And typically I like to go into the Ashigarami when I have an opponent who's trying to pull away from my arm drag attempt. And we can do this whether he steps to the outside or the inside. So I take the wrist across, I go for my grip, I want to take the back, and he steps up. Now again, it'd be almost foolhardy for me to continue to chase the arm drag, because we saw how he can step past my guard versus the arm drag. If Zach steps up to the inside position, okay, I can pummel my left leg back to the inside and go shin to shin, making a little hook here. My left arm comes off the wrist. I control wrist deep here, and now we have a shin to shin 2-on-1. Now from here, we've got a couple different methods we can use. I can either shoot my left leg through until my knee goes behind his knee, and now I can lay back, pull my left knee to my chest, and we're up into the Ashigarami. Okay. That was one option. Another option is to go to the shin to shin and then off balance him like we did before. I take the arm across, he steps up, I go shin to shin, just like we did. And now I can commit my head down by the knee, elevate this leg, and now we go into our shin to shin Ashigarami entry. Just like so. Okay, this is all stuff you've seen before, so I'm not going to go over these in great detail, because you should have done these a number of times by now as we worked our way through the open guard. So, again, I'm here, I go for my arm drag, he steps up. I pummel in shin to shin. I take my elbow 2-on-1 just like, or my shin to shin 2-on-1 like so. And now I have an option. I can either try to stay seated and punch my leg through, and then lean back for the Ashi, or from the shin to shin 2-on-1, I can take my head toward the opposite knee and elevate this leg and pull it into my hip and go to the Ashigarami. That was an opponent who stepped up to the inside. If he steps up to the outside, it's pretty similar as well. If I go here, I try to step out, he steps, and his leg's on the outside. It's just the same thing, but now it's easier. Okay? I can punch my leg through. I'm going to go 2-on-1 first. I go from here to here. Now the point of the 2-on-1 is not to pull his leg to me. His leg is going to be stronger than my arms. All it does is it stops him from kicking back. If Zach tries to kick his leg back and away from me right now, my arms hold him in place. Now I shoot my left leg through, putting my knee behind his knee. I lean back, foot in the hip, and now we have our Ashigarami. And then alternatively, if he steps to the outside, we can just as easily go shin to shin, elevate like we did before. So I'm in here, he steps to the outside, shin to shin, elevate, Ashigarami. Now I find that these tend to work better when I have an opponent who pulls back and away. Why? I'm in here, he steps up, I take my grip. And now, as I pull here, he's gonna like sink his weight low, he's gonna brace himself in the front leg and try to pull his head and shoulders up and away. Okay, very common. That's a big reason why they post his leg up. It gives him something to brace off so he can drive himself backwards. He knows that if he keeps his knee down, I can pull the head and shoulders forward and expose the back. So he posts on the foot, now I can't expose the back. But because all of his weight's pulling back and away, that's gonna leave this leg very light. Because this leg is gonna be really light, it's easy to exploit it and go in and take the Ashigarami. But do you remember that another thing Zach might do when he steps up? We already covered it. When I go to drag and Zach steps up, rather than pulling away, he came into me. Zach, remember when I had you coming in and you were passing my guard off that? So another option is that your opponents might come in and try to pass your guard when they step up out of the arm drag. Zach, let's do another quick visual. I'm here, he steps up, he goes over, and he ends up in like a 3/4 mount, okay? Terrible. So when I have somebody who's coming into me like that, sometimes it's better to go into a cross hook sweep, where I use a cross butterfly hook, meaning my right leg doesn't hook into his left leg here, but it goes across his center line and hooks into his right leg here. So I'm here, he steps up, okay? He steps up to the inside. Now from here, I could go either elbow deep from the outside with an overwrap, or I could go elbow deep from the inside with a scoop. Elbow deep outside, or elbow deep inside, doesn't matter. Now from here, I'm going to take in a cross butterfly hook, and because I have Zach's right arm and his right leg controlled, I'm going to sweep him over his right side, but I'm going to do so more overhead. So watch how this is going to work. I lock in my elbow deep grip on the leg. I lock in this. I lock in my cross butterfly hook. I'm going to lean back with my knee coming to the outside here. Now from here, I elevate, and watch how he's going to get swept over almost the right side of his body. Now that I'm sweeping him up and over, I'm going to extend my legs over his belly, go into a back roll, and we end up on top with a cross hook sweep. Okay? So again, I go here, Zach steps up, and this time I feel like he's driving into me. Okay, because he's committing his weight into me, it's easier to take him in this direction, behind me, because that's where he's committing his weight. So all I'm going to do, use this arm drag grip, I take my elbow deep grip here, and I let my cross butterfly hook go in just like so. Okay, my knee comes to the near side, and I'm in the cross butterfly hook position. Now I take him up and over, throw my legs across the body, and we back roll up into a cross hook sweep. Let's do it one more time, Zach. I think we might have gone out for you. I just want to double check. So let's scoot up this way just a tad. Alright, so I take the arm drag grip. Zach steps up in an attempt to pass. I can take an elbow deep grip. It can be either inside from the scoop grip or outside. It doesn't matter. Now as Zach comes in, I put in a cross butterfly hook. And I take him up and over. Now that I've dumped him over, I'm going to take both my feet across his body, and I'm going to back roll over my shoulder and come up to the top position. And that's going to be our cross hook sweep. Named cross because, Zach, please step up with one leg. The slight angle here. So this would be a straight hook sweep where my left leg hooks into his right. And a cross hook sweep is where I use a cross butterfly hook. I sweep them kind of up and then out to the side. So those are going to be most of your options for the arm drag. We have an opponent who pulls their hips away, or we have an opponent who pulls their shoulders away. We have an opponent who steps up and pulls backward, and we have an opponent who steps up and drives themselves forward. Okay, so those are going to be most of the defensive reactions. And then if you want to take it upon yourself to break his balance a little bit more, that fifth option was going into the arm drag and then also stepping on the knee, pressing that knee out and away, the knee push, in order to break his balance. Okay, that puts him out of position where it's a little easier for me to attack because he's been broken out of position, his stance and balance has been broken, and now he has to recover before he does anything. So let's run through these real quick one last time. So I'm in here, I take my my straight wrist grip, I go into my arm drag grip, and as I try to pull him, you know, he might be worried about being elevated or something like that, so he's going to sink his weight back in a way and I can't elevate. But when I see this, I take my right elbow to the floor, I look the same way Zach is looking, diagonal control, looking for the far hip, and then we just heist up to a knee. Now from here, we're ready to go to work from the turtle. I can force him into that broken down position with his shoulders in front of his hips by using a knee push, where I come in here, post my hip, take him out of position, and we're up. So that's an opponent who pulls their hips back and away, an opponent who pulls their shoulders away. I go to get the arm drag, pulling back and away. So I take my right foot out, I put my knee in. With my knee in, now I can come up over my knee, I look for that diagonal control, and now we're behind him, ready to go to work. Then we had an opponent who steps up. He can either step up and try to pull back and away from the arm drag, or he can step up and drive forward to try to pass. Let's look at pulling away first. I go into here, he steps up and he's going to try to pull away from the arm drag. When I see this kind of thing, I can pummel my foot back to the inside, and we can always go into Arashi Gurami. And when we have an opponent who steps up and drives forward, I accept his pressure coming into me, I hook both limbs on one side, both the arm and the leg, and then we take them over the top. So we go here, I jump here, boom, and we're up into the top position. Alright guys, hopefully that's a good introduction for you guys for the arm drag grip. We can use that arm drag grip to elevate. If he sinks his hips back and away to avoid the elevation and hook sweeps. Real quick, remember, don't forget, this arm drag grip we can use to get him up out of position, and now we can start going into hook sweeps. Otherwise, he might pull his hips back and away. If he pulls his hips back and away, we can take the back. We can force his hips in front of his shoulders by pressing his knee away and breaking his balance.